Every night, in the quiet after the funeral, a faithful dog refuses to be silent, barking relentlessly at his deceased owner's coffin. When the family finally opens the coffin, what happens next is so shocking, it defies everything you thought you knew about love, loyalty, and the mysteries of the afterlife. Stay tuned to uncover the truth behind this extraordinary bond. In a small town where traditions run deep and every family story carries its own weight, the passing of a beloved member can leave an indelible mark on the hearts of those left behind. This was the case for the Henderson family, whose patriarch and Samuel was known for his gentle spirit and unwavering love for his loyal companion, Max, the dog who had been by his side through every season of life. When Samuel's time finally came, the entire community gathered to bid him farewell in a solemn, heartfelt ceremony. Yet, in the midst of mourning and quiet reflection, an unusual and startling event unfolded. As the casket was carefully sealed, Maxan, who had been a constant presence throughout Samuel's life, began barking frantically at the closed coffin. His persistent, sorrowful barks echoed through the chapel, a raw expression of a bond that defied the finality of death. Family members exchanged puzzled glances. Max had never behaved this way before. Was it grief, a lingering hope, or something far more mysterious that drove him to react so desperately? In the days that followed the funeral, while the family struggled to come to terms with their loss, Max's relentless barking continued each night at the coffin, now resting in the family mausoleum. Curiosity and unease mingled among the mourners. Whispers began to circulate. Some believed that Max was sensing something extraordinary, a message from beyond, while others wondered if there was a hidden secret about Samuel's final moments. In this video, we delve into this shocking phenomenon, a tale of love, loyalty, and the uncanny connection between a man and his dog that transcends even death. What could compel a faithful dog to persistently bark at his owner's final resting place? And what astonishing revelation awaited when the family finally decided to open the coffin to uncover the mystery behind Max's desperate calls. Join us as we explore this emotional and eerie story that challenges the boundaries of life and death, and discover what happens next is truly shocking. In the days following Samuel's funeral, the air around the Henderson family mausoleum was heavy, with both grief and an unsettling curiosity. The initial shock of Samuel's passing had given way to a quiet, persistent murmur among family members and friends. Max, Samuel's loyal dog, would not stop barking at the closed coffin. Every night as the family slept, the sound of Max's frantic barks echoed through the quiet halls of the mausoleum, a raw, sorrowful cry that seemed to bridge the gap between life and death. At first, the family tried to dismiss it as an expression of canine grief. They believed Max was simply mourning his owner, unable to accept the finality of death. But as the nights wore on and Max's barks grew increasingly insistent, a growing unease took hold. Mrs. Henderson, Samuel's widow, recalled the many quiet evenings spent by Samuel's bedside when Max had always been calm and protective. Now, however, Max's behavior was different. There was a sharp urgency in his cries, as if he sensed something was amiss. Curiosity soon overpowered sorrow. One evening, the family gathered in a hushed conference in the old family parlor. Cousins and siblings exchanged uncertain glances while speculating about the cause of Max's agitation. Some suggested that perhaps Max was picking up on a subtle scent or an unexplained energy emanating from the coffin. Others whispered that there might be a secret Samuel had taken to his grave, a truth that Max, with his unerring loyalty, was determined to reveal. Unable to bear the mystery any longer, the family agreed that they should take a closer look. With heavy hearts and trembling hands, they decided to open the coffin during a private visitation at the mausoleum. The anticipation was palpable. Days before the scheduled opening, Mr. Henderson, Samuel's eldest son, meticulously inspected the coffin, noting every detail and wondering what the faithful dog's continuous barks could possibly mean. That night, as the family gathered in the quiet, candle-lit chapel of the mausoleum, Max's barks reverberated through the stillness like a somber drumbeat. The atmosphere was a mix of trepidation and hope, a hope that perhaps the truth behind Samuel's final moments could provide some solace or understanding. With hearts pounding, they slowly unlatched the coffin. Inside, the scene was shocking and unexpected. Samuel's body lay as peaceful as one might expect, but something unusual caught everyone's eye. Resting gently on Samuel's chest was a small, leather-bound envelope. It had been tucked away, almost inconspicuously, beneath the folds of his favorite sweater. No one had noticed it during the funeral, and its presence now sent a ripple of astonishment through the room. As Mr. Henderson carefully opened the envelope, a fragile letter, penned in a trembling hand, was revealed. The letter was addressed to Samuel himself, written in elegant cursive. It detailed a series of private confessions, an admission of guilt over a long-buried secret, and a plea for forgiveness. The contents were heart-wrenching. Samuel had been involved in a clandestine act, one that could have jeopardized not only his reputation, but the future of the family legacy. The letter explained that Samuel had taken extraordinary measures to atone for his actions, promising to protect those he loved, even in death. At that moment, Max's incessant barking reached a crescendo, as if the loyal dog was reacting to the unveiling of a truth that had been hidden for years. The family was struck silent. The revelation, so shocking and deeply personal, explained why Max had refused to let the coffin remain sealed. A dog's unwavering instinct had compelled him to alert the family to a secret that Samuel had carried to his grave. The shock of the revelation was compounded by a profound sense of connection. Mrs. Henderson's eyes filled with tears as she recalled Samuel's quiet remorse in his final days, a sorrow she had never fully understood until now. Each member of the family felt the weight of Samuel's confession, a burden that had haunted them all in different ways. Max, still pacing and barking outside the coffin, seemed to serve as both a guardian and a messenger, ensuring that this truth was not forgotten. As the family sat together in the silent aftermath, grappling with the newly revealed secret, a realization began to dawn. The loyal dog's behavior had been a poignant call to face the complexities of their past. Max's relentless barking was not an act of mere canine grief, but a deeply symbolic gesture, a reminder that some truths, however painful, must come to light if healing is to begin. In the aftermath of that heart-wrenching discovery, the atmosphere within the Henderson household was charged with a mixture of shock, sorrow, and a desperate need for answers. The revelation of Samuel's secret, a confession tucked away in a leather-bound envelope, had not only upended the family's understanding of their patriarch, but had also ignited a spark of inquiry that could not be easily extinguished. In the days that followed the coffin's opening, Mr. Henderson, still reeling from the shock, took it upon himself to decipher the delicate letter. In quiet, somber moments late at night, he would sit in the study, the envelope spread out before him on a weathered wooden desk. Each carefully penned line of Samuel's confession was read over and over again. As if the truth might morph with each recitation, the letter revealed a painful secret, a betrayal that Samuel had carried with him to his final breath. It spoke of an act that had not only jeopardized his reputation, but had also cast a long shadow over the family's legacy. Samuel's words were raw, filled with remorse and the desperate hope for redemption. This revelation forced the family to confront emotions they had long kept buried beneath the veneer of normalcy. Meanwhile, Max, the ever-vigilant dog, continued his relentless barking outside the family mausoleum, as though determined to ensure that the newly uncovered truth would not be dismissed or forgotten. His behavior, far from being a mere expression of canine grief, had become a symbol of the unyielding call for honesty, a reminder that some secrets are meant to be exposed, no matter how painful. Each night, as the barks echoed through the still corridors of the Henderson estate, they stirred up memories of Samuel's final days. Mrs. Henderson recalled faint moments of remorse in Samuel's eyes, subtle hints that he had been wrestling with a deep, personal guilt. Now armed with the letter, the family could piece together those enigmatic glances into a coherent narrative. In the ensuing days, the family convened in small groups to discuss the implications of the confession. Heated conversations unfolded in the parlor as cousins, siblings, and close friends debated the morality and consequences of Samuel's actions. Some members argued that the letter was a long overdue testament to the complexity of human nature, that even a man as steadfast as Samuel could falter under the weight of life's burdens. Others, however, struggled with the notion that their revered patriarch could have been involved in something so morally ambiguous. These discussions were not merely academic. They cut to the very heart of the family's identity and forced everyone to reevaluate long-held beliefs about honor, forgiveness, and the nature of legacy. Outside the walls of the family home, the community slowly began to take notice. Rumors about the strange behavior of Max, the loyal dog who would not cease his mournful barks, had spread beyond the immediate circle of the Hendersons. Local neighbors, many of whom had their own ghostly recollections of guardian animals from years past, started to speculate about the deeper meaning behind Max's insistence. In hushed tones at the local diner, people exchanged theories. Was Max's behavior a supernatural warning? A call to confront hidden truths, that even the dead could not keep secret. The intersection of folklore and painful reality lent an almost eerie quality to the unfolding drama. Motivated by the need for clarity, Mr. Henderson reached out to a local historian known for his expertise in regional legends. The historian phantom, Mr. Collins, agreed to meet with the family at the Henderson home to review the old records and newspaper clippings he had collected over the years. In a quiet afternoon session, amid stacks of yellowed papers and faded photographs, Mr. Collins revealed that there had been several similar cases in the past, instances where a loyal animal's behavior had led families to unearth long-buried secrets about a relative's life. He recounted a particularly striking tale of a neighboring family who, after the mysterious appearance of a wounded dog, discovered a confession that had altered their understanding of a cherished ancestor. This parallel stirred something deep within the Hendersons. The idea that Samuel's confession was part of a recurring phenomenon made the secret feel less like an isolated betrayal and more like a call to heal generational wounds. As these threads converged, Mrs. Henderson found solace in her own memories. In quiet moments alone, she recalled long-forgotten conversations with Samuel, a gentle word here, a somber look there, that now took on new meaning. The letter, with its trembling script and heartfelt remorse, recontextualized those moments. It revealed that Samuel's actions, though deeply flawed, had been driven by an overwhelming desire to protect his loved ones, even if it meant sacrificing his own honor. This bittersweet revelation helped Mrs. Henderson come to terms with her grief, transforming her sorrow into a resolve to honor Samuel's memory in a way that embraced both his strengths and his failings. In the midst of this emotional turmoil, Max's behavior continued to provide an unspoken counterpoint to the family's debates. The dog's nightly barks became a rhythmic reminder that the truth, however painful, was a necessary path to healing. Each bark was a plea for acknowledgement, a call to remember that the past, with all its complexities, needed to be faced in order to move forward. As the days wore on, the Hendersons decided that the next step would be to share their findings with a trusted circle of family friends and community elders. They planned a small private gathering at their home, where the letter and the supporting evidence from local records would be presented and discussed. The goal was not to cast judgment on Samuel, but to understand the full scope of his actions and to find a way to reconcile the painful revelations with the love that had defined his life. In this crucible of emotion, debate, and shared memory, the family began to see that the truth was not black and white. It was a tapestry woven from both light and darkness, a reminder that even those we revere can carry hidden burdens. And as Max continued to bark faithfully at the sealed coffin, it became clear that the loyal dog's insistence was a call to embrace that complexity, to allow the full spectrum of truth to shine through. As the night of the long-awaited coffin opening arrived, an air of heavy anticipation and muted dread settled over the Henderson family. In the candlelit chapel of the family mausoleum, the atmosphere was thick with whispered prayers and the unspoken hope that uncovering Samuel's final secret might finally bring clarity to the sorrow that had long haunted them. The family, still reeling from the initial shock of witnessing Max's relentless, desperate barking, gathered together. Every heart in the room beat in unison with a shared mixture of anxiety and determination. Mr. Henderson, with trembling hands, slowly lifted the heavy lid of the coffin. A collective gasp swept through the room as the lid creaked open, revealing Samuel's peaceful yet enigmatic repose. His features were serene, as though he had embraced a final, quiet acceptance. But it wasn't the stillness of his face that seized everyone's attention. It was what lay upon his chest. Nestled between the soft folds of his favorite sweater was a small, leather-bound envelope. No one had noticed it during the solemn service, and its sudden appearance was both baffling and disquieting. With cautious reverence, Mr. Henderson retrieved the envelope. Its surface was worn, the edges frayed by time, and it carried an aura of profound secrecy. The inscription on the front, written in an elegant yet hurried script, read simply, "For those who dare to remember." As he held the envelope, the murmurs in the chapel subsided into a tense silence, as if the very air awaited the revelation contained within. In that charged moment, Max's persistent barking outside seemed to echo through the walls, a reminder that the faithful dog had been urging them to uncover a truth hidden for too long. With hearts pounding, the family's eldest, Mr. Henderson, gently broke the seal and unfolded the letter. The script inside was elegant, filled with poignant expressions of regret, love, and hope. Samuel's confession spilled across the pages in a series of intimate, heartbreaking lines. He admitted to a long-guarded secret, a betrayal that had haunted him in silence and cast a shadow over his later years. Samuel confessed that, driven by a desperate need to protect his family's honor and to shield them from an impending disgrace, he had made a choice that he had carried as both a burden and a silent promise. He described an act committed in secret, a morally ambiguous decision made in a moment of profound crisis, that he hoped would be forgiven by those who truly understood the weight of sacrifice. As the words sank in, tears welled in the eyes of those gathered. Mrs. Henderson's sobs broke the stillness. Even the stoic Mr. Henderson's expression softened into one of pained resignation. The letter revealed that Samuel had taken extraordinary measures to secure the future of his loved ones, measures that had involved both an act of betrayal and an act of redemption. His confession was not merely an admission of guilt, but a plea for forgiveness and a hope that the truth, once unveiled, might bring healing rather than destruction. In that climactic moment, Max's barking reached a fevered pitch outside, a sound that, to the family, now resonated as a sacred alarm. It was as if the loyal dog had sensed that the truth, though painful, was necessary for the family's redemption. The shocking revelation transformed the atmosphere in the mausoleum from one of quiet mourning to a turbulent mix of sorrow, relief, and an urgent need for understanding. The discovery of Samuel's secret not only unraveled the mystery behind Max's relentless cause, but also redefined the family's collective identity. No longer was Samuel merely the beloved patriarch they had lost. He now emerged as a complex figure, a man who, in his final act, had chosen to bear a burden in order to protect those he loved. His confession, wrapped in humility and regret, challenged the family to see him in a new light and to grapple with the duality of human nature, the capacity for both profound error and the desire for redemption. As the family sat together in that sacred space, absorbing the shock of the revelation, an unspoken understanding began to take shape. The faithful dog's actions were not random. They were a heartfelt, instinctive response to a truth that needed to be known. Samuel's hidden letter had served as the catalyst, compelling the family to confront long-buried secrets and, in doing so, to begin the painful process of healing. In that moment of revelation, every tear shed and every whispered word formed a bridge between the past and the future. The discovery of the envelope transformed the mourning into a quest for forgiveness and understanding, a journey that would redefine the legacy of the Henderson family. The shocking truth, though heavy with sorrow, carried with it the seeds of renewal, promising that even in the darkest of legacies, there is a chance for healing. In the immediate aftermath of the shocking revelation contained within Samuel's hidden letter, the atmosphere within the Henderson family, and indeed throughout the community, was transformed into a complex tapestry of emotions. The discovery of the long-buried secret forced everyone to confront not only the legacy of a man they thought they knew, but also their own notions of honor, forgiveness, and identity. As the truth unfolded, each member of the family was compelled to reevaluate their memories and reframe the narrative of Samuel's life. At home, the Henderson household became a crucible of raw emotion. Mrs. Henderson, previously the pillar of quiet dignity, found herself overwhelmed by a surge of grief mixed with reluctant understanding. The gentle sobs that escaped her lips were not only for the loss of Samuel, but also for the pain of betrayal now revealed in the carefully penned words of his confession. She recalled subtle hints from his final days, a look of profound sorrow in his eyes, a trembling in his voice when he spoke of his unspoken regrets, that she had dismissed at the time as mere weariness. Now, those memories took on new meaning, and with them came the realization that Samuel's life was far more complicated than the simple image of the gentle patriarch she had always cherished. Mr. Henderson, the eldest son and unofficial guardian of the family's legacy, experienced his own inner turmoil. Having spent years trying to uphold a legacy of strength and tradition, he was suddenly confronted with the vulnerability and moral ambiguity in his father's final act. Sitting alone in his study, he reread the letter with a mix of disbelief and sorrow, his mind a whirlwind of questions. How could the man he had idolized be capable of such a secret? And what did this revelation mean for the future of the family's reputation? In the quiet solitude of that moment, Mr. Henderson began to grapple with the realization that the legacy of their lineage was not a flawless monument of heroism, but a complex narrative woven from both honor and regret. Outside the inner sanctum of the family home, the reaction among relatives and close friends was equally varied. At a private gathering held at the Henderson residence, cousins and siblings assembled to discuss the implications of Samuel's confession. Some were quick to express sympathy for Samuel's burden, arguing that his actions however misguided, were motivated by a desperate desire to protect those he loved. Others were more critical, questioning whether such a secret should have been hidden for so long and whether the time had come to confront the darker aspects of their family history openly. Heated discussions ensued, punctuated by long silences, as each person wrestled with their own interpretation of Samuel's choices. Meanwhile, the community itself was abuzz with rumors and whispered debates. Local news outlets, drawn by the poignant tale of a loyal dog and the mysterious legacy of a beloved patriarch, began to feature stories about the Henderson family. In one such interview, a longtime neighbor recalled how, as in times of hardship, families in their small town often clung to traditions and secrets, some of which were passed down through generations with reverence and fear. These stories, mingled with Samuel's confession, resonated with a portion of the community that had always believed in the mystical power of guardian animals. For them, the incessant barking of Max, the faithful dog who had guarded Samuel's coffin, was a symbol of the unresolved sorrow and hidden truths that bound them together. In an effort to process the newfound truth and mend the fractured bonds within the family, the Hendersons decided to hold a series of intimate, private discussions. In these gatherings, each member was encouraged to share their memories of Samuel, both the moments of joy and the subtle hints of sorrow that had, until now, been overlooked. Slowly, as the stories poured forth, a pattern emerged. They discovered that Samuel had carried a deep sense of remorse and an unspoken promise to make amends, a promise that was now articulated in his final written words. This collective sharing began to ease the tension, as the family started to view the secret not as a stain on Samuel's legacy, but as a human flaw that, when acknowledged, could lead to healing. Even Max's behavior played a role in this emotional recalibration. The dog, who had seemed so persistent and even mournful in his barking, became a living reminder of the bond between Samuel and the family. Every time Max let out a deep, resonant bark, it was as if he were calling the family to remember not only the pain of the secret, but also the enduring love that had defined Samuel's life. His loyalty, unwavering even in the face of profound sorrow, served as a poignant bridge between the past and the present. As the family navigated this tumultuous period, they began to consider the possibility of turning their private grief into a broader message of healing. Inspired by the emotional outpouring and the supportive words from trusted community members, the Hendersons initiated a small memorial project, an exhibition of photographs, personal letters, and mementos that celebrated both the strengths and the vulnerabilities of their beloved patriarch. The project was meant not only to preserve Samuel's memory, but also to serve as a testament to the complex, multifaceted nature of human legacy. In the midst of all these adjustments, David, though not a direct member of the Henderson family, found his own reflections mirrored in their struggle. Observing the family's journey of reconciliation and healing, he too began to understand that the true legacy of a person is rarely black and white. It is a tapestry of light and dark, triumph and regret. This realization reinforced his commitment to his own path of caring for Shadow and to the broader quest to uncover and honor the hidden layers of truth in the stories of those around him. In the wake of the family's raw emotional reactions, as the Hendersons began to piece together the implications of Samuel's secret, new subplots and challenges started to emerge that would further complicate the narrative. The revelation contained within Samuel's hidden letter not only redefined his legacy, but also cast a long shadow over the family's understanding of their past. It became clear that the mystery was far from resolved, and that the relentless barking of Max was only the beginning of a series of events that would force everyone to confront deeper truths. One unexpected subplot arose when Mrs. Henderson received a phone call from an estranged cousin, Judith, who had long been considered a quiet, peripheral member of the family. Judith Keyes, with a voice tinged with both sorrow and urgency, revealed that she had been investigating similar occurrences in her own small town. She recalled an incident from her youth, when a wounded dog had inexplicably appeared at her home during a period of great familial strife, and how that event had sparked a series of hidden revelations that ultimately led to healing. Judith's story, though shrouded in mystery and nostalgia, hinted at a pattern, a recurring phenomenon where guardian animals seemed to manifest at critical moments to unearth long-buried secrets. Her call left Mrs. Henderson and the rest of the family reeling as they began to wonder if Samuel's secret and Max's unyielding protest were part of a larger, almost intergenerational phenomenon. Simultaneously, local news began to take an interest in the unusual events surrounding the Henderson family. A small regional newspaper published a series of short, evocative pieces about the dog that would not be silent, capturing snippets of interviews with neighbors who recalled similar incidents from decades past. One particularly striking article detailed an old family's account of a miracle dog that had appeared in times of deep crisis, serving as both a harbinger of hidden truths and a symbol of communal healing. These published recollections not only validated some of the family's suspicions, but also introduced a broader public debate. While many embraced the notion that such phenomena were sacred signs meant to reconnect communities with their ancestral roots, others dismissed the stories as mere folklore, exaggerated, sentimental fabrications with no basis in reality. Amid the growing media attention, the local animal control authorities began to scrutinize the area more closely. Rumors started circulating that there had been previous reports of stray animals behaving erratically near the old family mausoleum. A routine inspection was scheduled, and some community members feared that the authorities might take drastic measures to cleanse the area, potentially severing the delicate connection between the family's legacy and the natural world. This prospect only intensified the Hendersons' determination to protect Max and the message he represented. The looming threat of bureaucratic intervention introduced a practical challenge. If the authorities were to remove Max or alter the cemetery's sanctity, the profound emotional and symbolic meaning of Samuel's final message might be lost forever. In parallel, the Hendersons found themselves grappling with internal tensions that had been simmering beneath the surface. While many family members were beginning to accept the complexity of Samuel's legacy, others clung stubbornly to an idealized image of their patriarch, a man of unwavering virtue who could not possibly have been involved in such a controversial act. Heated debates erupted during private family dinners, and the emotional strain began to fracture old bonds. Some argued that revealing Samuel's secret was a necessary, if painful, step toward healing and forgiveness. Others felt that the confession would tarnish his memory and shatter the cherished legacy they had built around him. The resulting rift forced the Hendersons to confront difficult questions about how to reconcile the dual nature of human beings, their capacity for both profound error and deep, transformative love. Adding further complexity, the faithful dog Max, whose behavior had been a constant source of both comfort and confusion, began to display new, erratic patterns. There were nights when Max would wander off from the mausoleum, only to return with a faint, almost imperceptible limp. Neighbors reported that they had seen Max sniffing intently around the perimeter of the cemetery, before emitting a low, mournful bark. Such observations led some to speculate that Max was not merely reacting to Samuel's secret, but was attempting to signal something more, perhaps a hidden clue about a past event that the family had never fully uncovered. These subtle behaviors raised unsettling questions. Was Max's distress simply an expression of canine grief, or was it a deliberate act meant to guide the family toward further revelations? As these subplots began to converge, the tension in the community and within the Henderson family deepened. The intersection of personal memory, ancient folklore, and modern bureaucratic intervention created a labyrinth of challenges that none of them had anticipated. Each new lead, whether it was Judith's haunting recollections, the media's evocative articles, the potential threat of animal control, or Max's increasingly puzzling actions, added layers of complexity to the narrative. It became apparent that Samuel's secret was not an isolated incident, but part of a recurring, almost sacred cycle of revelations that had touched multiple lives over the years. In the quiet moments after these revelations, the family gathered together in the parlor, their voices hushed and eyes glistening with tears. They began to share stories of past hardships, of moments when a loyal animal had appeared as a beacon of hope during the darkest hours. These intimate recollections, though painful, slowly began to knit the family together, offering a path toward understanding and forgiveness. Yet, the specter of unresolved secrets still loomed large, challenging them to embrace the full, often painful truth of their legacy. In the days that followed the shocking revelation of Samuel's hidden confession, the Henderson family found themselves grappling not only with the weight of the secret, but also with a profound internal struggle that reached far beyond the immediate implications of the letter. The discovery of the leather-bound envelope had forced each member to re-examine their cherished memories of Samuel, and the emotional fallout was as varied as it was intense. At home, the atmosphere grew heavy with unspoken questions and tentative attempts at reconciliation. Mrs. Henderson, once the steady pillar of the family, spent long tearful evenings in quiet solitude. Every time she glanced at Samuel's casket, now left open after the discovery of the secret, she felt an overwhelming mix of sorrow and confusion. The gentle murmur of Max's barks outside the mausoleum, once a symbol of loyalty, now echoed as a mournful lament, a constant reminder of a past filled with unspoken regrets. For her, the letter was both a vindication and a painful reminder that even the most revered souls could harbor dark secrets. In the quiet hours of the night, as she sat by a flickering candle, Mrs. Henderson revisited every small gesture and every whispered word from Samuel's final days, trying to reconcile the man she had loved with the flawed human being now revealed. Mr. Henderson, the eldest son, found himself locked in an internal battle between admiration for his father's courage in facing his own moral failings and the bitter sting of betrayal that threatened to unravel the image he had always held dear. In his study, surrounded by family photographs and relics of bygone eras, he reread the confession with trembling hands. His mind raced with questions. How could the man he had idolized be capable of such a secret? And more importantly, how should the family now reinterpret a legacy that was built as much on silent remorse as it was on enduring honor? In quiet moments, he wrestled with the notion that the very strength that had made his father a respected figure might also have been the source of deep personal torment, a duality that now seemed to define the family's history. Meanwhile, extended family members and close friends began to react in their own ways. At an intimate gathering at the Henderson home, cousins and siblings engaged in heated discussions about Samuel's past. Emotions ran high, as long-held resentments and hidden sorrows bubbled to the surface. One cousin, with eyes glistening with unshed tears, recalled a time when Samuel had quietly sacrificed his own needs to shield the family from scandal. Another, more cynical relative argued that the secret was a stain that should have been expunged years ago, warning that any public acknowledgement of it might tarnish the family name permanently. The room was filled with both comforting embraces and bitter silences, as each person sought to process the revelation in their own way. Amid these family dynamics, the reaction of Max, the ever-faithful dog, added another layer of complexity to the emotional landscape. Max's relentless barking had initially been a source of consternation, but as the days passed, his behavior began to be seen in a new light. Some family members started to view the dog's actions as a form of silent protest, an instinctual call for the truth to be honored. Every time Max let out a deep, resonant bark at the coffin, it was as though he were urging the family to confront the whole truth of Samuel's life, rather than allowing a sanitized version to persist. His behavior evoked both empathy and unease, forcing the family to confront the idea that animal intuition might sometimes reveal more about a person's soul than carefully curated memories. David, a close family friend who had long chronicled these events on his blog, found his own emotions mirrored in the Henderson struggle. Through countless conversations, he observed that while some members clung to an idealized image of Samuel, a man of unblemished honor, others began to see him as a complex, fallible individual whose mistakes had been both human and deeply painful. In his blog posts, David recounted the dichotomy of human nature, the coexistence of noble intentions with imperfect actions, and the notion that true healing begins when one embraces all facets of one's legacy, both light and dark. In an unexpected moment of vulnerability, Mr. Henderson reached out to his estranged cousin, Judith, who had long maintained that the family should confront its past head-on. In a heartfelt phone call, Judith reminded him that forgiveness and healing were possible only when one accepted the entirety of one's history. "Our ancestors were not perfect," she said softly, "but they were real, and their mistakes were part of what made them human. To honor them, we must acknowledge both their virtues and their failings." Her words resonated deeply with Mr. Henderson, prompting him to consider that perhaps Samuel's confession was not an admission of irreversible disgrace, but rather a necessary step toward redemption, a call to mend broken hearts through the acceptance of painful truths. All these varied reactions, raw grief, reluctant understanding, fierce denial, and cautious hope, created a mosaic of emotions that underscored the complexity of the Henderson legacy. The family's internal conflicts, set against the backdrop of a community still steeped in old legends and modern skepticism, illuminated the fragile process of healing. As each person grappled with their own memories and the new revelations, they slowly began to see that true strength lay not in the denial of imperfection, but in the courageous act of embracing the full spectrum of one's humanity. In this crucible of emotion, the persistent, mournful barks of Max served as a constant reminder that some truths, however painful, must be faced in order for genuine healing to begin. The interplay of individual sorrow and collective memory forged an unspoken bond among the family members, a bond that, despite the raw wounds of the past, held the promise of renewal. In the days following the shocking revelation from Samuel's hidden letter, the atmosphere surrounding the Henderson family and their mausoleum became charged with an undercurrent of mystery. What had begun as a moment of raw, heartbreaking discovery now revealed additional clues that hinted at an even deeper, more intricate narrative. A narrative that stretched beyond personal grief into the realm of local legend and communal memory. One crisp evening, as dusk settled over the town and shadows lengthened around the family mausoleum, Mrs. Henderson noticed something peculiar. While she sat alone in the quiet of the garden, reflecting on the letter and the relentless barking of Max, she saw a faint, flickering light near the old oak tree at the edge of the property. At first, she dismissed it as a trick of the fading light, but as the night deepened, the light grew steadier, a soft glow that seemed almost purposeful. Convinced that it was not merely a natural phenomenon, she hurried inside to tell the rest of the family. Word spread quickly. Later that night, during a hushed family meeting in the parlor, Mr. Henderson showed everyone a grainy video clip taken by a neighbor. The clip captured the mysterious glow near the oak, interspersed with moments of Max pausing, as if fixated on that distant, luminous point. The implications were startling. Could this glow be connected to the ancient traditions the family had long forgotten? Was it another message, like the ones Samuel had hinted at in his secret letter? At the same time, an anonymous text message began circulating among the family's close friends. The message read, "The light of remembrance reveals more than what is seen. Look beneath the roots." Attached was a blurry photograph of a stone marker, partially hidden by overgrown ivy in a secluded part of the cemetery. This marker, the text suggested, might hold the key to understanding Samuel's final secret, a connection to rituals or forgotten vows made in the name of protecting the family legacy. As these hints began to accumulate, the local newspaper, already buzzing with speculation about the mysterious behavior of Max, published a follow-up article. The piece described not only the persistent barking of the dog, but also reported that several long-time residents had observed unusual ghostly lights near the family mausoleum in recent weeks. A retired park ranger was quoted as saying, "In our community, old legends speak of guardian lights, omens that appear when a family's hidden truths are about to be revealed." The article added fuel to the growing fire of local intrigue, and soon whispers of supernatural intervention and ancestral rites became common at town gatherings. Within the family, the emotional tension escalated. David, the close family friend who had chronicled their experiences on his blog, found that the new clues challenged him to dig deeper into the Hendersons' history. He reached out to a local folklore expert, Ms. Eleanor, who specialized in regional ghost stories and ancient rituals. In a private interview, she explained that in many parts of the country, it was believed that the spirits of the departed could communicate through ethereal lights, especially when a great secret or betrayal had haunted a family for generations. "These lights," she said softly, "are nature's way of illuminating the path to redemption, urging those left behind to confront the past." Her words lent an air of inevitability to the unfolding mystery. Meanwhile, Max's behavior began to change in subtle ways. The once relentless barking was now punctuated by periods of silence, during which the loyal dog would stand motionless at the mausoleum's edge, his head tilted as if listening to a distant, inaudible call. Neighbors reported that on several occasions, Max would dart toward the direction of the old oak tree, only to return slowly, his eyes reflecting an urgency that was hard to decipher. These observations led some to speculate that Max was not simply mourning, but was actively trying to communicate a message, perhaps one tied to the ancient stone marker or the spectral lights that had been seen around the cemetery. Adding yet another layer of intrigue, Judith, the estranged cousin who had been quietly investigating similar occurrences in her own community, sent a detailed email to the Henderson family. In her message, she described how her town had experienced a similar phenomenon after a revered elder's passing. According to Judith, a guardian light had appeared on the anniversary of the elder's death, guiding the community to rediscover long-forgotten traditions of compassion and reconciliation. Her account resonated deeply with the family, suggesting that the mysterious lights and Max's behavior were not isolated events, but part of a recurring, almost ritualistic pattern meant to bring healing through remembrance. With every new clue, the soft glow near the oak, the anonymous text and photograph, the follow-up newspaper article, and Judith's evocative recollections, the tension in the Henderson household and the community grew. The converging hints painted a picture of a hidden legacy, one that reached back through the generations, to a time when guardian animals, spectral lights, and secret rituals were integral to preserving family honor and communal bonds. In the charged silence of that night, as the wind whispered through the trees and Max's barks faded into the distance, David sat by the window, contemplating the significance of these mysterious developments. The layers of mystery, of ancient rites, spectral signals, and the undeniable connection between Max's behavior and the family's hidden past began to converge into a single, compelling narrative. It was clear that the truth behind Samuel's secret was far from simple. It was a tapestry woven from threads of folklore, personal loss, and the timeless call for reconciliation. In the weeks following the eerie discoveries, the mysterious glow near the oak, the anonymous text with its cryptic photograph of the hidden stone marker, and Judith's compelling email, the tapestry of the Henderson family's past began to weave itself into a larger narrative that transcended their immediate grief. What had once seemed like isolated occurrences were now clearly part of a broader, almost ritualistic legacy that resonated deeply with local lore and the collective memory of the community. At the heart of this emerging narrative was the mysterious behavior of Max, the loyal dog whose relentless barking had first alerted the Hendersons to Samuel's secret. Neighbors started to share more detailed accounts of their own observations. In hushed conversations at the local diner, several longtime residents recalled that, on nights of intense emotion or communal hardship, ghostly lights would appear near the family mausoleum and the old oak tree. One elderly gentleman, with eyes glistening with memories of a bygone era, described how decades ago similar lights had been seen as a sign that the spirit of a revered ancestor was watching over the community. They called it the guardian light, he said softly. A signal that even in death our loved ones guide us, urging us not to forget where we come from. His words added a layer of gravitas to the unfolding mystery, suggesting that Max's behavior was more than mere animal instinct. It was an echo of an ancient call. Around the same time, David, the family friend chronicling these events on his blog, began to receive messages from readers who shared eerily similar experiences. One comment from a user named Forest Echo detailed a personal encounter with spectral lights at a local cemetery during a time of personal crisis. Others mentioned old legends of guardian animals and the idea that the appearance of a wounded dog could signal a cycle of renewal and reconciliation. These online interactions not only validated the Hendersons' experiences, but also connected them with a broader network of individuals who believed that such phenomena were the work of something timeless and deeply rooted in the land. Inspired by these shared stories, the Hendersons decided to host a small private gathering at their family home. Invited were close friends, some local elders, and a few community members known for their interest in folklore. Over cups of herbal tea and amidst the gentle hum of quiet conversation, participants exchanged stories about ancestral guardian animals, long-forgotten family secrets, and the mystical bond between nature and human emotion. Judith, the estranged cousin whose email had stirred so much curiosity, recounted a particularly poignant tale from her town, how a miracle dog had appeared during a time of deep communal despair, its presence heralding an eventual period of healing and unity. These narratives, interlaced with the Hendersons' own experiences, painted a picture of recurring omens that transcended generations. As discussions deepened, Mr. Henderson took a moment to reveal some family heirlooms that had long been tucked away in a dusty chest in the attic. Among these items was an old leather-bound ledger containing cryptic entries written in his father's hand, entries that hinted at secret meetings, rituals performed under moonlit skies, and a solemn pact between the family and the forces of the wild. The ledger, with its faded ink and mysterious symbols, seemed to corroborate the legends that the community had begun to share. It provided a tangible connection between Samuel's hidden confession and the wider lore of guardian animals, suggesting that the Henderson legacy was not merely a personal matter, but part of a larger tradition of honoring the wild. At the same time, local authorities, who had initially threatened intervention due to safety concerns, started to exhibit a reluctant curiosity about these events. A meeting with a regional wildlife officer revealed that similar incidents had been recorded in other parts of the state, moments when local fauna appeared to act as harbingers during times of societal stress. Although the official stance remained cautious, there was now a growing recognition that the phenomenon might warrant further investigation rather than immediate suppression. The convergence of these subplots, the spectral lights, the ancient ledger, Judith's recollections, and even the softened stance of local authorities began to reveal a deeper truth. The mystery of Max's incessant barking, and the revelations of Samuel's secret were intertwined with an ancestral legacy of guardian spirits. It was as if the land itself was calling out, urging the Hendersons to reconcile the contradictions of their past. The revelation that their family had once been part of a sacred tradition that honored the wild was both uplifting and deeply unsettling. It promised the possibility of healing and renewal, but also forced them to confront long-held doubts about the integrity of their lineage. In quiet moments afterward, as dusk settled over the mansion and Max lay silently by the mausoleum, the Hendersons gathered to reflect on the day's revelations. They began to see that the path forward was not simply one of mourning and regret, but of embracing a legacy that allowed for both light and shadow. The anonymous messages, the spectral lights, and the shared stories from neighbors all pointed to a future where the past could be honored without being condemned, where the enduring bond between man and the wild could provide a roadmap to healing. In the days following the revelation of Samuel's hidden confession, the emotional turmoil within the Henderson family and the surrounding community reached a boiling point. The discovery of the mysterious letter and the enduring, almost supernatural behavior of Max, the loyal dog who persistently barked at Samuel's coffin, had sparked a maelstrom of conflicting opinions and raw emotions. What was once a private and sorrowful secret was now thrust into the public spotlight, polarizing the community between those who viewed Max's actions as a sacred message and those who insisted that such phenomena belonged in the realm of superstition. At a tense town hall meeting held in the old community center, voices clashed as family members, neighbors, and local officials gathered to discuss the future of the Henderson legacy. Mr. Hargrove, a pragmatic councilman, argued with firm conviction that the continual disturbance caused by Max's barking posed a risk to public order. "We must act decisively," he declared, "to ensure that our community remains safe and that we do not let sentimentality cloud our judgment." His call for immediate intervention, possibly even the relocation of Max and the secure closure of the family mausoleum, resonated with those who were fearful of allowing unresolved grief and old legends to interfere with modern life. However, a passionate counter-argument arose from members of the community who held tightly to the old ways and the power of collective memory. Elderly residents, some of whom had grown up with stories of guardian animals and miraculous interventions in times of hardship, spoke with trembling voices about the significance of Max's relentless barks. "Max is not just barking out of simple grief," one woman explained, tears glistening in her eyes, "but as if he's urging us to confront the truth that our patriarch, Samuel, carried with him to his grave." Her words, filled with both sorrow and hope, struck a deep chord within many who saw in Max a living symbol of their ancestors' enduring love and sacrifice. Caught in the crossfire of these opposing forces, the Henderson family was forced to confront the very nature of their legacy. In a private, emotionally charged family meeting held in the parlor of their centuries-old home, relatives debated fiercely about whether Samuel's secret should be honored as a necessary part of their history or suppressed to preserve a myth of unblemished honor. Mr. Henderson, the eldest son and de facto keeper of the family legacy, found himself overwhelmed by the duality of his father's persona, a man both revered and deeply flawed. "How do we reconcile the Samuel we loved with the truth he carried?" he questioned, his voice heavy with anguish and confusion. His query was met with both nods of empathetic understanding and sharp retorts from those who felt that admitting such a secret would only tarnish the memory of the man they had so long idealized. The conflict was further intensified by the behavior of Max. The dog's insistent barking, once dismissed as a simple expression of canine mourning, now appeared to be an almost deliberate act of defiance. Neighbors reported that on certain nights, Max's barks grew louder and more frantic, as though he were warning the family, and perhaps the entire community, that some truths could not remain hidden. Rumors began to circulate that Max might be the reincarnation or the earthly messenger of a guardian spirit, destined to unearth long-buried family secrets. These whispers of supernatural intervention added an unsettling layer to the debate, blurring the lines between folklore and reality. Amid this charged atmosphere, a breakthrough came when an anonymous tip was received by the Hendersons. The tip, delivered via a discreet envelope left at the family door, contained a series of old newspaper clippings and photographs documenting similar incidents from decades past. One article, in particular, recounted a tale of a miracle dog that had appeared during a time of great community turmoil, leading to a long-forgotten reconciliation among feuding families. The parallels to the current situation were uncanny. The evidence suggested that the phenomenon of a dog persistently guarding a deceased loved one's coffin was not an isolated incident. but a recurring symbol in the region's lore, one that carried the promise of healing and renewal if its message was heeded. The revelation from the anonymous tip forced the community to re-examine their earlier positions. At the next town hall meeting, heated debates resumed with renewed vigor. Proponents of preserving the mystical legacy argued that intervening to remove or silence Max would not only disrupt the natural order, but also sever a vital connection to the past, a connection that, if embraced, might pave the way for communal healing. "We cannot ignore the signs," an impassioned resident declared. "Max is telling us something important about our history and about the sacrifices made by those who came before us." Her voice, steady and resolute, sparked a shift in sentiment among many attendees. Yet the forces of modern pragmatism were not easily swayed. Local law enforcement reiterated their concerns about public safety and the need to maintain order in a time of emotional volatility. Their looming threat of intervention created a palpable tension that hung over the entire community, as if a storm were gathering on the horizon. It was clear that a critical decision was imminent, one that would determine whether the family's ancient legacy of compassion and redemption would be honored, or whether the modern world's insistence on control and order would prevail. As the meeting drew to a close, the unresolved conflict left everyone on edge. The Hendersons knew that the next steps were crucial. The fate of Max and the symbolic truth he represented depended on the decisions that would be made in the coming days. The tension reached its apex, setting the stage for a climactic confrontation that promised to reshape not only the family's destiny, but also the broader relationship between the community and the enigmatic legacy of guardian animals. In the charged aftermath of the town hall debates and the flood of revelations from the anonymous tip, the Henderson family and the broader community found themselves standing at a crossroads. The fate of Max, and by extension, the sacred legacy embodied by his ceaseless barking, hung precariously in the balance. The forces of modern pragmatism, represented by local law enforcement and skeptical officials, were pitted against the passionate defenders of ancestral memory, who saw in Max's behavior a call to honor the past. That stormy evening, as the wind rattled the aged windows of the community center, the Hendersons convened one final meeting with the newly formed Heritage Oversight Committee. The room was filled with a mixture of determined faces, local historians, community elders, and sympathetic officials, and a palpable tension that vibrated in the heavy air. Mr. Hargrove, who had long championed strict modern measures, opened the session with a grave reminder of the community's need for order. "We must ensure public safety," he asserted, "and that means taking decisive action against disturbances that could escalate into chaos." His words, firm and unyielding, met immediate counter-arguments from those who saw Max's persistent barking not as a nuisance, but as a profound message. Mrs. Jenkins, her voice trembling with emotion yet resolute, recalled the old legends with quiet fervor. "Max isn't merely barking out of sorrow," she insisted, "but to remind us of the guardian spirit that has watched over our family for generations. Removing him, or silencing his voice, would be like erasing a part of our soul." Her impassioned plea resonated deeply with many present, stirring memories of past hardships and communal bonds that had been forged in times of adversity. Amid the clamor, David, a close family friend and chronicler of the unfolding events, stepped forward to present the evidence from the anonymous tip. With steady hands, he unfolded a series of old newspaper clippings and photographs that detailed similar phenomena from decades past. One particularly striking article recounted the tale of a miracle dog that had appeared during a local crisis, uniting warring families and inspiring acts of forgiveness. The evidence was undeniable. This was not an isolated incident, but part of a recurring tradition, a sacred signal that, if heeded, could heal old wounds and restore a lost legacy. The committee members exchanged glances, their skepticism gradually giving way to reluctant curiosity. The atmosphere shifted, albeit imperceptibly, as even some of the more skeptical officials began to see the possibility that preserving Max's role might indeed serve a higher purpose. "We are at a critical juncture," David declared, his voice resonating with both conviction and vulnerability. "And if we act without understanding, we risk losing something far more valuable than mere order, our connection to the truths of our past." At that moment, a heated discussion broke out between those who favored immediate intervention and those who argued for a cautious, measured approach. Mr. Hargrove maintained that public safety must be paramount, while others argued that Max's behavior was a sacred alarm, a call to confront hidden truths. The debate grew so intense that voices rose above the low hum of the storm outside. and the community's future seemed to teeter on a knife's edge. In a climactic turning point, a respected local elder, known for his wise yet practical counsel, rose and addressed the assembly in a measured tone. "We are not here to simply control nature," he said, "but to honor its lessons. If these guardian signals have been sent to us before, then we must find a way to listen and learn, rather than simply silence them. True safety is found not in the absence of chaos, but in our ability to embrace the balance between order and the wild spirit of life." His words cut through the tension, and for a brief, poignant moment, the room fell into a reflective silence. Buoyed by this shift, the Heritage Oversight Committee unanimously voted to delay any drastic measures. They would commission an independent investigation to thoroughly document and understand the phenomena surrounding Max's behavior, and in the meantime, preserve the sanctity of the family mausoleum. This decision was met with a mixture of relief and cautious optimism from the community, an acknowledgement that the deep, ancient bonds they shared with the wild could not be dismissed lightly. As the meeting adjourned, the echoes of the debate lingered in the minds of all present. Outside, in the cold darkness, Max's barks carried on the wind, a soulful, persistent cry that spoke of both sorrow and hope. For the Henderson family, the decision marked a turning point, a commitment to protect their legacy and to honor the mysterious, almost sacred, messages that nature had been sending. It was a promise that the truth, however painful, would be allowed to surface, and that through understanding and compassion, even the deepest wounds could be healed. That night, as the storm began to subside and a tentative calm settled over the community, John, Mrs. Henderson and Mr. Henderson stood together beneath the ancient oak by the mausoleum, gazing up at the darkened sky. In that silent vigil, they made a solemn pledge to embrace the full truth of their family's past, acknowledging the beauty and the pain, the honor and the flaws, and to forge a future built on the enduring power of compassion. That stormy night, as rain pounded relentlessly against the old community center and the winds howled like the voices of the past, the tension in the room reached its ultimate apex. The heated debates and impassioned speeches had left everyone reeling with uncertainty, each individual acutely aware that the fate of Max, and with it, the cherished legacy of the Henderson family, hung precariously in the balance. In the dim light of the community center, illuminated intermittently by flashes of lightning, the atmosphere was electric with both fear and hope. Every face in the room, etched with worry, determination, and lingering disbelief, reflected the deep divisions that had formed over the past few days. On one side, there were those who demanded immediate action, insisting that public safety and modern order must prevail. On the other, a growing faction of believers argued that the mysterious, almost sacred presence of Max was a sign of something far greater than mere canine grief, a call from the depths of their ancestral past that could lead to healing and renewal. Amid this charged environment, the Heritage Oversight Committee had just concluded its final session. The decision to delay the relocation of stray animals and launch an independent investigation had not quelled the discord entirely. Rather, it had set the stage for an even more critical confrontation with the forces that threatened to erase their communal memory. The room was filled with heavy silence, punctuated by the murmurs of those still torn between modern pragmatism and the enigmatic pull of ancient lore. Outside, the relentless barking of Max resonated through the night like a solemn drumbeat, a sound that carried with it the weight of generations and the enduring power of truth. For many, Max's cries were not just expressions of grief, they were a clarion call to remember, to unearth long-buried secrets, and to embrace the full spectrum of their heritage, flaws, redemption, and all. As the meeting adjourned, and people began to filter out into the stormy night, a palpable sense of urgency gripped the community. The next phase of the investigation loomed on the horizon, a decisive expedition into the ancient cemetery and the surrounding grounds where whispers of guardian lights and spectral presences had been reported. Rumors suggested that hidden among the time-worn tombstones and gnarled trees lay evidence of rituals and memories that could finally explain the true significance of Max's behavior, and, by extension, Samuel's secret. Inside his own home later that night, Mr. Henderson sat alone in the flickering candlelight, the echoes of the heated town hall debate still resonating in his mind. The revelation of Samuel's confession had shattered the idealized image of the patriarch he had once revered. Now, with the burden of both pride and remorse, he felt the inescapable pull of legacy, an ancient call to reconcile the past with the present. Every whispered word from the meeting, every tear shed by his family, and every bark of Max outside wove together a tapestry of unresolved emotion, setting the stage for a final confrontation with their shared history. At the same time, David, the family friend and chronicler of these events, sat at his desk, his eyes scanning through the documents and photographs he had collected over the past weeks. The anonymous messages, the spectral lights near the old oak, and the damning evidence from the newspaper clippings all converged into a single, burning question. How could a single, unwavering act of loyalty by a dog reveal so much about the hearts and souls of those it touched? His fingers trembled as he penned his latest blog entry, his words capturing the raw tension that gripped the community, a tension that promised to erupt into a revelation that might either heal old wounds or expose new ones. As the hours drew near to dawn, the community's fate seemed to hinge on one final, decisive act. A select group from the Heritage Oversight Committee, along with several family members and a few trusted neighbors, were scheduled to reconvene at the Henderson Mausoleum the next morning. Their mission? To explore a hidden chamber beneath the family tomb rumored to contain relics of past rituals, artifacts that could validate the ancient legends once spoken of by elders, and perhaps even provide a measure of closure to Samuel's haunting confession. In that critical moment, as the storm began to abate and the sky lightened with the promise of a new day, every individual in the community felt the full weight of what was at stake. The old oak by the mausoleum, its bark inscribed with cryptic symbols, stood as a silent sentinel to their shared past, a reminder that the truths they sought were as much about reconciliation as they were about justice. The tension was no longer merely a clash of opinions. It had become a transformative force that demanded a courageous, collective response. Standing on the precipice of this imminent climax, the Henderson family and the community were united by a single, unyielding question. Could they embrace the totality of their history, both its light and its dark, and in doing so, forge a future defined by healing and understanding? Max's persistent barking, echoing into the quiet after the storm, was a resounding affirmation that the call for truth could not be silenced. In that final electrifying moment, as the first rays of dawn crept over the horizon and bathed the world in soft light, the community braced itself for the revelations that lay ahead. The ancient legacy was ready to be reclaimed, and the path to healing was illuminated by the unbreakable bond between the living and the departed, a bond that, no matter how deep the wounds, promised that compassion and remembrance would always prevail. That night, as a chill wind swept through the Henderson estate and a heavy silence cloaked the mausoleum, the moment everyone had anxiously awaited finally arrived. Under the ghostly glow of a half-lit lantern, the family gathered in the somber chapel of the mausoleum, their hearts pounding with a mix of trepidation and reluctant hope. After days of intense debates, secret letters and whispered legends, they knew that uncovering Samuel's final truth was inevitable, and that the loyal, unyielding barking of Max had guided them to this fateful moment. Mr. Henderson, with trembling hands, slowly opened the heavy lid of the casket. As it creaked open, a collective gasp rippled through the room. Samuel lay peacefully inside, his face serene and his eyes closed as if in eternal slumber. But what truly seized everyone's attention was not his calm countenance, but the small leather-bound envelope nestled on his chest, a secret tucked away so carefully that no one had noticed it at the funeral. For a few agonizing moments, the chapel was bathed in a silence so profound it felt as though time itself had stopped. Max's barks from outside, sharp and insistent, echoed through the space, as if the faithful dog was urging the family to confront what was hidden within the envelope. With a heavy heart and a profound sense of duty, Mr. Henderson unsealed the envelope. His fingers, worn from years of labor, carefully unfolded the yellowed letter that Samuel had left behind. As the words spilled from the paper in an elegant, sorrowful script, the truth crashed over the family like a tidal wave. Samuel's confession revealed a long-held secret, a single fateful decision made in the shadow of crisis, intended to protect the family from imminent disgrace. The letter detailed a clandestine act of betrayal, a moral compromise born of desperation, and an overwhelming need to secure the future of those he loved. Samuel had sacrificed his own honor, burdening himself with guilt and regret, in order to shield the family from scandal. His heartfelt admission was interwoven with pleas for forgiveness and a hope that the truth, once embraced, would allow them to heal and move forward. The shock in the room was palpable. Tears streamed down faces as Mrs. Henderson's sobs broke the overwhelming silence. Mr. Henderson's voice, usually so commanding, quavered as he read aloud passages that spoke of deep remorse and unspoken love. Each word seemed to carry the weight of years of hidden sorrow, a reminder that even the strongest men can harbor devastating secrets. In that moment, the family's image of Samuel transformed. He was no longer the untarnished patriarch of their memories, but a man whose life had been marked by both noble intentions and tragic failings. Max's incessant barking outside reached a crescendo, a mournful yet defiant sound that resonated with the family's collective heartache. It was as though the loyal dog, ever intuitive, sensed that the time for healing had finally come. The truth, so painful and raw, was now laid bare before them, a truth that demanded acceptance if the wounds of the past were to ever mend. As the letter's final words faded into the quiet of the mausoleum, an eerie stillness settled over the room. For a long, breathless moment, every soul present was suspended in a state of profound reflection. The revelation had shattered long-held illusions and forced each family member to confront the dual nature of their beloved Samuel, a man capable of both great love and heartbreaking error. In that climactic silence, the room seemed to vibrate with the collective heartbeat of the family, each pulse a reminder that true healing begins when painful truths are finally acknowledged. Then, as if carried by the wind and the soft whispers of the ancestors, a gentle murmur began to arise among the mourners. It started as a few tentative words, but soon it grew into a shared expression of sorrow and acceptance. The family, united by the raw honesty of Samuel's confession, began to see that this long-hidden secret, however painful, was a part of their history, a piece of a larger tapestry woven from both light and shadow. In that moment, Max's persistent barking softened into a single resonant howl, a sound that seemed to bridge the gap between the living and the departed. It was a call for remembrance and reconciliation, a reminder that even in the darkest truths, there lies the potential for renewal. As the first light of dawn began to break through the stained glass windows of the mausoleum, the family embraced, their grief mingling with a tentative hope for the future. They understood that Samuel's confession, rather than diminishing his legacy, opened the door to forgiveness, a pathway to healing the wounds that had long festered in silence. With the revelation complete, the atmosphere in the room transformed from one of shock to a profound, somber unity. In that climactic convergence of past and present, the Henderson family made a silent, collective vow to honor both the virtues and the flaws of their beloved patriarch. They would preserve his memory in all its complexity and ensure that the legacy of compassion and redemption would endure for future generations. As the soft light of dawn filtered through the stained glass windows of the mausoleum, the Henderson family slowly began to emerge from the long, tumultuous night of revelations. In the quiet aftermath of Samuel's confession, the painful truth that had been hidden for decades now lay bare, a truth that challenged every long-held ideal and forced the family to see their patriarch in an entirely new light. The raw emotions that had filled the chapel and echoed through the silent corridors of the family home gave way, gradually, to a fragile sense of unity and a shared resolve to move forward. In the days that followed, the atmosphere around the Henderson estate was transformed. The once overwhelming grief and shock were tempered by an emerging understanding that forgiveness and healing were possible, even in the wake of such profound loss. Each family member, in their own quiet way, began to reconcile the dual nature of Samuel's legacy, the undeniable love and the deep, hidden remorse that had haunted him until his final moments. What had initially appeared as a stark betrayal was now understood as the complex interplay of human frailty and the desperate measures one sometimes takes to protect those he holds dear. Mrs. Henderson, once overwhelmed by sorrow, found solace in revisiting cherished memories of Samuel. She recalled the gentle moments shared over a warm cup of tea, the soft laughter that had filled their home, and even the unspoken gestures of care that had gone unnoticed in the bustle of everyday life. With each recollection, she began to accept that Samuel's secret, as painful as it was, did not erase the goodness he had shown throughout his life. Instead, it painted a fuller picture of the man, a man capable of great love and, inevitably, deep imperfection. In embracing this complexity, she discovered that the path to healing lay in acknowledging all facets of the past, not just the parts that shone brightly. Mr. Henderson, burdened with the responsibility of upholding the family's honor, spent long hours in quiet reflection. The revelation of Samuel's confession forced him to confront the myth of an unblemished patriarch and replace it with a more nuanced understanding. In the solitude of his study, surrounded by old photographs and mementos, he resolved that the true measure of a man lay not in his perfection, but in his ability to seek redemption and foster healing among those he loved. This new perspective, though hard-earned, allowed him to embrace his father's legacy with renewed compassion and a commitment to mend the fractures that had long divided the family. Meanwhile, the community, which had been polarized by the shocking news and the relentless barking of Max, began a slow process of reconciliation. Local news outlets, initially captivated by the sensational aspects of the story, shifted their focus to highlight the themes of healing and communal memory. At town hall meetings and local gatherings, residents shared stories of guardian animals from decades past, tales of miracles that had once united a fractured neighborhood during times of hardship. These shared narratives, passed down in hushed tones, served as a reminder that even the most painful truths could foster a deeper bond among people. The persistent barks of Max, which had once been a source of eerie discomfort, now resonated as a symbol of unwavering loyalty and the enduring power of nature's call to remember. As the Henderson family began to rebuild their understanding of the past, they also took steps to honor it. With the support of local historians and community elders, they organized a modest exhibition titled Legacy of Compassion. The display featured old photographs, personal letters, and relics from the family's archives that recounted both the joys and sorrows of Samuel's life. The exhibition became a gathering point for community members, where stories of guardian animals, mysterious happenings, and acts of redemption were shared with reverence. This public commemoration not only helped the family to heal, but also rekindled a collective appreciation for the rich, albeit complex, heritage that defined their community. Throughout this period of healing and transformation, David, the dedicated family friend and chronicler, continued to document every detail on his blog. His words captured the evolving journey of the Hendersons, from the shock of a secret revealed to the gradual acceptance of a multifaceted legacy. Readers found comfort and inspiration in his narrative, and his online community grew into a supportive network of individuals who, too, believed in the power of truth and compassion to mend even the deepest wounds. Now, as the first light of a new day bathed the Henderson estate in a gentle glow, the family stepped forward with a renewed sense of purpose. Samuel's confession, once a painful shard of the past, had become a catalyst for transformation, a reminder that the true measure of legacy lies not in perfection, but in the capacity to forgive, heal, and embrace the entirety of one's story. Thank you for joining us on this deeply moving journey of discovery, sorrow, and ultimately healing. If Samuel's story has touched your heart and reminded you that even the most painful truths can lead to redemption, please subscribe to our channel, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Stay tuned for more stories that explore the intricate bonds between our past and our present, and let's continue to honor the legacy of compassion that connects us all.